Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cope Life podcast. I think I'm starting a couple seconds early, but I couldn't wait to just jump on and get started. I always want to start off just by saying welcome to the Cope Life podcast and that I appreciate you so much for being here. And what we're really trying to do here is create a community where each of us strives to live a cope life, a life in which we bring kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy to everything that we do. And today's episode, I want to do a little more teaching before I really dig into the details. And so today's topic is that you cannot stay where you feel unsafe. And the reason why I think that's important is because there's so many times in people's lives where maybe they face danger and they're able to escape it, yet at the same time, they're continually in places where danger resides. And quite often, people don't even recognize that about them. They don't recognize, and they think that those individuals who may be feeling triggered are being dramatic or they're overreacting and they say, "What's wrong with you?" But in reality, people feel unsafe in certain locations and circumstances. And I want to kind of teach a little bit about just kind of hit on the science behind that so that you can kind of understand what's going on with some people. And so, really, what happens in the brain is you receive information. You receive information through your senses, right? And of course, we know the senses there's eyesight, hearing, vision, taste, and smell. And you gather information from there, and that information is sent to your brain. And there's two different locations. There's a neocortex where you do the you do most of the information processing. Information gets there, you process it in many different ways, and then you make decisions based off of that information. And it could be any kind of information, such as the wind is cold. You process that information, you choose to go back inside, and either you stay inside or you grab a coat, things like that. Then there's the amygdala. And what happens with the amygdala is when that sensory information reaches your brain, if it's automatically recognized as a threat, the information does not go to your neocortex to get processed like other data. It goes straight to your amygdala so that it can then go down your brainstem to the rest of your body so that you can take action to survive. And I'm talking about increased levels of cortisol and adrenaline, get blood flow and oxygen to the muscles that need that extra energy, whether that's running from something, so you need more blood flow to your legs. So you breathe faster to get more air, your heart pumps faster to pump blood faster, get it to the legs to run away. And so that's what happens in the brain. You get that information. Is it going to take the pathway to the neocortex so the information can be processed and be acted upon? Or does that sensory information come off as we don't have time to think, it is time to take action? It goes immediately to your amygdala, your fight, flight, freeze response, and then you take action. And really, when I talk about the fight, flight, or freeze, really that's kind of backwards. It's really freeze, flights, and then fights. And really, that's kind of a natural way of things to happen, right? Because if you pay attention, you can recognize it in your own life when you're just going about your normal day and something happens that may be a threat. The first thing that you do is you freeze. You always freeze first. And sometimes when you freeze, you notice nothing's going on. You tighten up your senses a little bit. You get focused, and that's what happens when the sensory information is sent directly to your amygdala. Is you focus. So are you smelling something? Are you hearing something? Are you seeing something? What is the threat? And then maybe what happens is you recognize there is no threat. But the first thing you did was freeze. Sometimes you recognize the threat. And so the next thing that you want to do is you want to flee, you want to take flight, you want to get away. And again, we recognize that in our own lives. For example, if you smell smoke, you want to leave, you want to get away from the fire. If you're being chased by an animal, you want to take off and get away from it. If you hear something that sounds scary and you don't know what it is, you're more likely to take off. You're more likely to leave. If you don't have a choice, then you fight. There's nowhere to go. Freezing won't fool the threat. You have to fight. And so that's the way that our brains work. The threatening information goes to your amygdala, skips the neocortex, it skips the information processing, and it goes straight to let's take action. Then you freeze, gather more information, take flight if you have to. If you can, if you cannot, then you fight. And so that's what's going on in the brain. That's what happens with us. And then to bring that back to today's subject, you cannot stay where you feel unsafe. When that happens to you often, your body recognizes, your body remembers the attributes of the threat. Your body remembers the location. Your body remembers the sensory information, whether it's about a specific smell, a specific color, a specific person. And so what happens is when you end up in a place where you're close to those notifications, then your stress response kicks in automatically. You don't have a choice in that. Like when you go into a place, imagine you go into a building and you immediately just feel like something's off and you immediately start to focus in. You didn't make that decision. There's something about that place that sent data directly to your amygdala. So when I say you can't stay in a place where you feel unsafe, what I'm talking about is people who feel forced to continually go to unsafe spaces. And when I say that, I'm not talking about places where their lives are threatened. All right. I'm going to bring this back to daily life for so many people. I'm talking about things like when children go to school and they're bullied, when you work in a toxic work environment, when you go to a place where your boss continually belittles you, when you're dealing with different forms of discrimination, whether they're race based microaggressions or whether it's making fun of you of something else, your age, your height, your weight, your disability, your gender identity, your sexual preference. And then with children, it's the same thing. Children get made fun of for so many things, they get bullied for so many things. And it's hard to stay there. So many children are struggling in school, not because they're dumb, not because they're stupid. Their brains work like everybody else's. But what's going on with them is when they enter that place, their body immediately recognizes that this is where they were previously harmed. So they have heightened awareness systems, they have hyper arousal, they are focused in on looking for these threats. And sometimes those threats are in other people. This individual bullies this person. But I'm going to tell you this, though. Sometimes, a lot of times, it is the adults who are the bullies. When you have teachers who call out students, why didn't you know this? Everyone else knew this. Why are you the only one who forgot to turn in your assignment? Why are you interrupting the class and you're running late? And what happens in those instances are those children feel humiliated. They feel humiliated. They feel alone. And that is taken as a threat. So then what happens is every time those kids go back to that classroom, they feel a threat. So they're not able to process information in the same way. They're not able to comprehend the day's lesson in the same way because they're worried about that threat. They're worried about the bully in the back of the class or the teacher who's mean to them or maybe something that they're going through at home that shows itself in their life. For example, if they're in a location where there are no school uniforms and other kids make fun of their clothes, so maybe there's not a specific bully, maybe there are multiple kids who make fun of this person because they don't have the resources to take regular showers or to wear new clothes, and they have to wear the same clothes multiple times a week. So those children don't feel safe in those spaces. You adults who are listening can understand what I'm saying if you've ever worked in a toxic work environment, if you've been in a location where you had a boss or coworkers who bullied you, where there's hazing, where there's sexual harassment and other forms of discrimination. And I'm saying this to you because I want people to understand that the things that our kids go through, they're not new. We've experienced these things as children and we continue to experience them as adults. And what we have to do is we have to be able to create a safe space. Creating a safe space takes courage. It's not easy. But courage is something that happens. Courage is something that comes about within you in the face of fear. You cannot be courageous when you have no fear, right? It doesn't take courage to tie your shoes. It doesn't take courage to play video games or to eat your sandwich. It doesn't take courage to do these basic daily activities. But when you're afraid, then it takes courage. And so, what I want to talk about is how to really kind of how to build up the courage in yourself as an adult, whether you're in a toxic work environment or maybe you're in a toxic relationship. What you have to do, the first thing you have to do is to elevate your self awareness and really recognize your worth. Recognize that you deserve better. Realize that you don't deserve to be treated poorly. A lot of times in toxic relationships and toxic work environments, the toxic individuals make you believe that you deserve these things, but you don't. And you have to recognize that because that positions you to do something about it. That positions you to stand up for yourself because you value yourself. You value justice. You value fairness. And standing up for yourself is going to look different in different places in different ways. Standing up for yourself may involve confronting the person directly. Standing up for yourself might involve just quitting that job. Standing up for yourself might be reporting an incident to HR or going to the next level up supervisor. But you cannot really stand up for yourself if you do not believe that you are worth fighting for. And so that's why I say the first thing that you have to do is you have to recognize your value, recognize your worth, recognize that you are worth fighting for and that you deserve to be happy. You don't earn a toxic work environment. You do not earn a toxic relationship. You do not deserve that toxicity in your life. And when you recognize that and you begin to really grasp your real value, then you position yourself to stand up for yourself because, again, you deserve to be happy and you do not deserve any form of toxicity in your relationships or your workplace. And so, what I want to hit on now is when I talk about how you can't stay somewhere that you feel unsafe. And this is really kind of the thing that I've been thinking about most often over the last few days are children who feel unsafe in their homes. That's the worst thing for me. That is the absolute worst thing for me. I remember I was at a store one time and there was this child, probably 5 or 6 years old, and the parent was getting angry with the child's behavior. And the parent said, "You're acting like you're 2 years old." That makes no sense to me. You're acting like you're 2 years old. I, as a parent, have no idea what I'm doing. I don't like how you're acting because I feel embarrassed. So I'm going to insult you. That's an example of parents bullying their children. Children don't want to go to the store with you if you bully them in the store. If you say things like, you're acting up, if you threaten them, when you get home, you're getting a whooping. Don't threaten them. Don't humiliate them. Don't embarrass them. Don't shame your children. Don't bully them. And then when you get home, if you do that, if you have this toxicity, if you have this negativity, you're bullying them and they don't feel safe. That's why a lot of children, when they're younger, are really outgoing, really playful, really just fighting for your attention. And then you notice over time that they stop doing that, that they'd rather just be in their rooms by themselves. The reason is you. And I really want parents to understand that when you bully your kids in the name of parenting, that doesn't make it better. When they're having fun at school and then they walk through the door and they don't know if they're going to be in trouble or not, they don't know if they're going to get bullied. Are my parents going to call me dumb or stupid or lazy or worthless? They don't know if they're going to be labeled that way or not. So they'd rather not even come home. And so when they do come home, what do they want to do? Isolate themselves. They want to get away from the mental and emotional harm, from these threats. And so, really, my overall point of this whole thing is that children, too many children, feel unsafe at home. And I'm not even talking about the abusers. There's so many parents who will say things like, I don't beat my kids, I am not abusive. But those same parents will say things like, why did you fail this test? You're so stupid. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I speak to audiences, when I speak to audiences, often when I speak to different organizations, when I speak to companies, regardless of what I'm talking about, we can be talking about leadership, we can be talking about conflict resolution. There's always people whose questions revolve around, and they often don't even know it, but their questions revolve around their feelings of low self esteem and low self worth. And it stems from childhood, it stems from someone that they love and care about making them feel worthless when they were children. It stems from a parent, again, saying, why are you lazy? Why are you fat? Why are you stupid? Why are you dumb? You're so worthless. Get out my face. And what you're doing is you're making that child feel intense emotional pain. They feel a sense of betrayal. And then those children grow up to be the adults who are the toxic leaders. They're the adults who are bullying in the workplace. They're the adults that we should be reporting to HR for discrimination, for harassment, for hazing. If we want to change the culture and build it into one of kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy, it starts with the way that we talk to ourselves and the way that we talk to our children. So if you want your kids to feel safe at home, you need to talk to them with love and respect, support, and encouragement. You need to let them know that they are free to be themselves, that they are free to love themselves, and that they are safe. So there are certain words that you can eliminate from your vocabulary when you speak to them. Stop calling your children stupid. Stop calling them lazy. Stop calling them stupid and dumb and worthless. There's so many adults, probably the majority of adults who are listening to this, who can remember the adult who made them feel the most worthless. If you don't want that memory to be about you, then don't speak to your children like that. And then what happens when your children feel loved and safe and secure in the home? That's how we reduce bullying in the schools. And that's how we reduce toxic workplaces over generations. So that's what I wanted to say to you. Thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you so much again for all of my listeners, anyone who watches live or the replay, LinkedIn, Facebook, or my YouTube channel. I appreciate you. And again, let's continue to work to build a world of kindness, optimism, positivity, and empathy. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.